What up, brawlers? Welcome back to Throwing Hands. As Daniel and I will be reviewing Fight Night Kattar versus Ige. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jacob. How are you, man?
I'm good. Ready to get this stuff started.
Yes,
I,
sir.
I'm. I know we didn't preview this fight, but Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Lazzez, that was a good fight. Did you see that?
Yeah, I caught it. It was a really good one. It goes, I believe, as fight of the night, correct?
Yes, it was.
And Abdulaziz came in overweight, so he ends up not getting the bonus from that. Uh, but it was a really good fight between two guys that just threw a lot of strikes, landed a lot of strikes. 78 significant strikes for Lazez, and then 68 landed for Al Hassan. These were two guys that were just throwing bombs at each other for 15 minutes, and it was a really good showing from two guys that maybe not a lot of people had heard about before this card.
Yeah, you make a good point there. Not too many people had heard about these two dudes. And with what Lazez pulled out, especially in the third round, he kind of turned it on there, and that's probably why he got the win. And when he was on top of Al Hassan, that really just put it in the books for me for that Lazez win. Yes, he didn't get the bonus, but people know the name now, and he should be grateful for that. So we're gonna head on to the first fight we previewed, and that was Ryan McCann versus Tyler Santos. You and I talked a bit about this before we started. Tyler Santos impressed me very much. What were you impressed by?
Sorry, you
What were you
froze again.
impressed by with Santos?
Tyler Santos, honestly, I was not expecting a lot out of her because she came into the UFC 15-0, but had never been tested. And the first time she was matched up with somebody that really was battle tested in her first fight, she lost it. But she clearly took a lot away from that fight and came back against Molly McCann, who's a high pressure fighter, somebody that fills up the scorecards with a lot of volume. And she out pressured the high pressure fighter. Uh, Tyler Santos cut off the octagon for Molly McCann, but was still able to not let her get in tight and throw in the pocket with that amateur boxing style that Molly McCann has thrived with in the past. I really liked what Tyler Santos brought here, and I really liked the way she's changed her game up and learned from her first career loss.
Yeah, you make a good point there. She had a long time to learn from her first career loss too, as it was over a year since she had lost her first fight. And with Santos, what really did it for her was the takedowns, and especially when she got into the tie clinch, that really set her apart from what Molly McCann did. Yes, they weren't. Tyler Santos separated herself with total strikes and significant strikes, but really separated her from the for Molly McCann was the takedowns, and that she was 5 of 7 on the takedowns, which is a very good rate. So, you know, with Molly McCann, what do you think's next for her?
I'm not sure what is the next thing for Molly McCann, honestly, because she was sitting there in the 15th spot, and that division it's a good one, and she's obviously not close to the top. I think she probably drops out of the top 15 with this loss, but she's a very talented fighter. I don't think she has a style that's going to make her a title contender at any point, but she's somebody that you can use to test prospects like Tyler Santos as they're on their way up. Somebody that, like I said, is a high pressure fighter, fills up scorecards with a lot of volume in her strikes, and can be somebody that can help weed out who's a legitimate prospect and who's going to be somebody that just fills out a spot on the roster.
Yeah, you make it a good point. She could be kind of like a Jim Edwards in the sense of that he kind of gatekeeps that top 15. He's the test for up and coming new prospects to come in. And if they beat her, they can probably get up in the top 15. But if not, they can work a little bit and they can move back up to the top 15. And I think what's next for Tyler Santos is probably Antonina Shevchenko. I think she kind of showed what she did there in that last fight, dominating in the clinch. And I think with a striker like Antonina Shevchenko, that'd be a pretty good matchup for her challenge-wise because they're somewhat similar. But I think Antonina is just a little more refined. What do you think?
I agree with that. I like Antonina Shevchenko as a fighter. She's coming off a loss, which you may not necessarily want to pair her up with somebody like Tyler Santos, who's on an upward track like that. But Honestly, I don't know that there's a better matchup as far as a test for Tyler Santos goes. If Macy Barber was healthy, I would love to see that fight. Those are two really good young women's flyweights that I think have a chance to be something special in this division. But obviously, Macy Barber is still rehabbing a serious knee injury. But I like Antonina Shevchenko as the next opponent for Tyler Santos. I think that'll be a really good test.
All right. All right. So on to the next fight. We're gonna head over to Jimmy Rivera versus Cody Stamann. We did not get this. I don't think we got this fight right. No, we did not
No,
because
I definitely took Cody Stamann.
yeah, you and I did both took Cody Stamann. And yes, these guys fought at featherweight yesterday, I believe. But they're usually 135ers, so this still might shake up that division a little bit. But what Jimmy Rivera showed me was, like as you can see on the screen, a lot of striking. He brought the volume in this 3-round bout, and he landed a lot of significant strikes on Cody Stamann. And Cody Stamann only managed 1 takedown out of 5, and still Jimmy Rivera has only been taken down once at most in each of the fights he's been taken down. What are your takeaways from this fight?
I thought this was a good bounce back fight for Jimmy Rivera. We talked about on the preview episode that he's lost 3 of his last 4, but it's been all to guys that are elite bantamweights. If you look at it, he picks up this win over Cody Stamann. He lost 3 of his last 4, but they were losses to Marlon Moraes and Aljamain Sterling, the top 2 bantamweight contenders, and then Petr Yan, who just won the bantamweight championship at UFC 251. So again, Jimmy Rivera is very clearly still somebody at bantamweight that is not to be messed with. Cody Stamann, I really like Cody Stamann. I still think he's got a pretty decent future in this division with his combination of wrestling and striking because he's got a lot of power in his hands. He's got a wrestling background and a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just think Jimmy Rivera, as far as a challenge, may have been a little bit of a bridge too far for Cody Stamann, who is still on his way up as far as this division goes.
Yeah, you make a good point there. And I think with Jimmy Rivera, his ranking doesn't show where he truly stands in the division. Like you said, he lost to Yan, he lost to Moraes, he lost to what was the other name you said? I can't remember.
Petr Yan.
Yeah,
No,
he lost to Yan.
Yeah, you said Petr Yan.
Yeah, he lost to some very significant people in this bantamweight division. And yes, he is ranked 8th. He's lost 2 of his last 3, but the way where he is in this division, he's really a top 6 guy, but because of Sun Sao and Aldo recently competing for the title, he's not in that top 6 and 7 spot. So it really doesn't reflect on how good Jimmy Rivera truly is. Now, I think for what's next for Cody Stamann, we can see him fight a young fighter like Song Yadong next. I mean, this guy is a very promising prospect coming up.
That would actually be a rematch.
Hey, I wouldn't be complaining, man.
Yeah, they fought to a draw back in December. Song Yadong technically would have won on the scorecards, but an illegal knee. He was docked a point for an illegal knee, and it went to a majority draw.
Yeah, so I think we'd like to see that again. And then, I mean, Sean O'Malley's coming up. I forget who's he fighting next. That just came out, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay. Go find that, man. And then, yeah, we could see Cody Stamann or Rob Font or maybe even Dominic Cruz to see where Dominic Cruz is standing in this division right now. So we'll figure this out. And I think you agree with me on. Do you agree with me on Stamann? Like, what do you think's next for Stamann?
Cody Stamann, I think he gets another decent contender in this bantamweight division. Whether it's a rematch with Song Yadong, I would find to be pretty interesting, as those are 2 guys that I really like as up and comers in this division. With a loss to Jimmy Rivera, he's definitely not ready for somebody of the caliber of Corey Sandhagen, who's also coming off a loss. I don't think that's something we're going to be looking at this point, but those are 2 of the younger guys in this division that are decent contenders moving forward. Maybe Rafael Assunção, actually. 2 guys coming off of losses.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there on Assunção. Yeah, Assunção just coming off a loss from, I believe, Cody Garbrandt, if I'm not mistaken. And with what Assunção's done, I think that would be a pretty good challenge for Cody Stamann. So what do you think is next for Jimmy Rivera?
Jimmy Rivera definitely proved he's still a guy to watch out for in this division. I don't think he's in the realm of a Sterling or a Moraes right now. Obviously, he recently lost to those guys. But honestly, when it comes to at least success in the bantamweight division, I think he's a step above Jose Aldo. I feel like I've constantly knocked Jose Aldo anytime he's come up on this podcast, but now he's 0-2 in the bantamweight division. He looked good against Petr Yan, but he still lost the fight. I think Jimmy Rivera takes a step forward. Maybe he is the next fight for Jose Aldo. I don't know. But I like Jimmy Rivera moving forward. I don't know that he's the type of guy that can take the title off Petr Yan, but I think he's certainly someone that you can throw up against a title contender, and he may derail your plans at some point.
Yeah, you make a good point. He could derail some of his plans. I think we could see him fight a Corey Sandhagen next, somewhere up there. Or maybe we could see him fight Jose Aldo, because Jose Aldo, I wouldn't be surprised if he still has something to prove in this division. I feel like he could thrive in this division. He just needs to get used to he's already mastered the weight cut, he said. I just feel like he has to get used to the caliber of competition that's in this division. And I feel like when he adjusts his training and stuff, he will get well adjusted to this. And I think we could see Jose Aldo fight for a title again. And I think for Jimmy Rivera, that'd be a great next matchup. All right, to the next matchup of the night, a flyweight division, I think. Yes, flyweight. Tim Elliott versus Ryan Benoit. What were your takes on this fight?
This was an interesting fight to watch, as it was a mix of styles, is what I'll say, because Tim Elliott's kind of a mauler with his style. He's very aggressive on the feet, which helps him make up for a style that's not very refined. And he definitely had the advantage on the ground in this fight, whereas Ryan Benoit, standing up, his striking was so much more precise than Tim Elliott. It was a really fun fight to watch because their styles clashed so much. It was really, really fun to watch two guys that are so different go at each other for 3 rounds.
You really just summed it up for me there. I mean, Tim Elliott, yes, very odd fighter. He was, like you said before, he was giving some weird fakes, some weird feints. And with Benoit, he still looked quite explosive in this fight. And when Tim Elliott got to the ground, he really dominated when he was down there. And Tim Elliott, he really killed Benoit with the jab. If Benoit hadn't, he should have figured out a way to get past Tim Elliott's jab. And if he had done that, this fight could have been a little more competitive. But Tim Elliott, even after he dislocated his finger, he figured out a way to defeat Benoit simply by utilizing that jab. So what do you think's next for Benoit?
I missed part of that.
What do you think's next for Benoit?
Ryan Benoit, it's interesting because he came into this fight unranked. Tim Elliott's towards the bottom of the rankings. But I think he's definitely somebody that moving forward we can look at in this division to be somebody to excuse me, I'm rambling, it feels like, but somebody to look out for a little bit, because he's been ranked in the past. He was ranked number 15 at one point. He's lost 2 in a row, but he's still only 30 years old, and in a flyweight division that has some very talented fighters but isn't super deep top to bottom. He could make some noise moving forward if he can just figure out some of the problems when it does go to the ground. I thought he looked a lot cleaner on his feet than Tim Elliott did. I think he fought a style that if that fight had stayed on the feet would have looked really good on the judges' scorecards. He's 10-7, but I don't think his record really reflects what he brings to the table as a fighter.
Yeah, you make a good point. His skill level isn't diminished by his record, and I still think he's, besides name isn't coming to my mind, but he's probably arguably the most explosive striker in this division. And I think if we see him paired up against a Jordan Espinosa or David Dvorak, we could see him come into fruition and definitely see how his striking could carry him in this division. So as for Tim Elliott, maybe a Matt Schnell, maybe a Kai Kara France next. That's kind of what I'm thinking for him. What do you think?
And that makes a lot of sense to me as well. Elliott, this was a good comeback, not a comeback fight for him, but a good turnaround, as he's kind of been up and down through the last couple of years. He's now upwards of 30. He's 33. And it was a good bounce back after getting upset by Brandon Royval back in May. So Tim Elliott proved that he is still a guy in this division that can do a lot of things well and can be a big test for people. I don't think he's a very good fighter. I don't think he's necessarily a top 10 guy, but he's got a lot to bring to the table in the UFC flyweight division.
Yep, you pretty much summed it up for me there, man. All right, to the main event of the evening, we learned a lot here. Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige. We learned that Dan Ige will be a force to be reckoned with in the next couple of years, but the force to be reckoned with now is Calvin Kattar. I can't speak more highly of this guy after he bashed in Jeremy Stevens' face in, and then he came again against Dan Ige with a partially healed broken nose, and he still got the win. What were your thoughts on this?
Every time that I watch Calvin Kattar fight, I remember why I love watching this guy fight. I mean, he's in your face nonstop. In this case, for 5 rounds. In his previous fights, for 3 rounds. I mean, he was all over Dan Ige from bell to bell, and I love guys that are like that. He's aggressive. He's creative. His striking style is something that I really like, and I think moving forward as a featherweight, he's somebody to watch out for. I think obviously that's a deep division, but it's a division that doesn't have a clear number one contender right now. And I think Calvin Kattar is behind a few other guys in line. I would think Zabit Magomedsharipov is certainly ahead of him right now. And I think Max Holloway is, if they do want to go with a trilogy fight between him and Alexander Volkanovski. But Calvin Kattar is coming, and when he gets here, he's going to be real dangerous for anyone at the top of this division.
Yeah, and I think what will make him real dangerous is this number right here. Ige was 0 of 9 on his takedowns. Now, Ige has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a brown belt in Judo, and I believe he wrestled at some point in his life. So this dude knows how to take people to the ground. It's not like he just learns how to do it when he just started training for MMA. This guy is experienced in taking people to the ground. And what Calvin Kattar, he even took Ige down, which impressed me even more. And 105 he had 105 significant strikes, Calvin Kattar. That is absurd, especially even in a 5-round fight. That's pretty darn good. So I think what we've learned from this fight is Calvin Kattar can go up against people that are successful on the ground. And what we've learned for Dan Ige is he's still a very bright up-and-coming prospect. So as we talk about Dan Ige, what do you think's next for him?
I think Dan Ige is certainly not going anywhere when it comes to this featherweight division. Maybe I don't know about Jeremy Stevens, because Jeremy Stevens has had some weight issues. He's lost a lot of his recent fights, so he's obviously gonna take a step back. Maybe Shane Burgos, because Shane Burgos looked really good against Josh Emmett in a loss. Dan Ige looked really good against Calvin Kattar in a loss, and Kattar and Emmett, I think, are kind of on a similar playing field when it comes to contenders and level right now. You take the guys that they lost to, match them up, Ige and Burgos. I think that'd be a really good fight.
Isn't Josh Emmett hurt from his last fight?
Yes, he tore his ACL. He's down for a while.
Yeah, so I would like to see that Shane Burgos fight. Even though Burgos lost that last fight, it was a close competitive fight up until the last part of the 3rd round. So I would like to see Dan Ige go up against a very aggressive person like Shane Burgos. I think that would be very beneficial to Dan Ige. So I think we'll talk about, speaking of aggressive, Calvin Kattar's quite aggressive. What do you think's next for Mr. Kattar?
I think he's probably going to have to wait a little bit. I would have liked to match him up with Josh Emmett before Josh Emmett got hurt. But the guys all that are all ahead of him are a little spoken for right now. You're going to get Zabit matched up with Yair Rodriguez. You're going to get Brian Ortega against Chan Sung Jung. Probably that fight hasn't been made yet, but it's probably going to happen. And I don't know that Calvin Kattar is ready for a jump up to Max Holloway in his next fight yet. So a legit featherweight contender, and I think he can take some time and be able to pick his next spot.
Yep, I have to agree with you there. He can definitely take his time with this because the rankings will be shuffling up quite soon with 2 through 5 fighting quite soon with Yair Rodriguez against Zabit Magomedsharipov, which we'll preview and review that for sure. I'm excited for that one. And Brian Ortega and the Korean Zombie will be fighting fairly soon. So Calvin Kattar can definitely pick his shots here. I wouldn't even advise him to fight in the next for the rest of the calendar year unless it's December because of the way he's positioned. Because he's probably second or third in line for that title shot. Wouldn't you say?
I would have to think so. I think the way that it probably goes is, again, you've got to think about Max Holloway. I don't think the UFC wants to do a trilogy with him and Alexander Volkanovski right away. I think Max Holloway probably takes a step back from contendership right now. But I think the way you're going to have to look at it is you're going to get the winners of Zabit and Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega and Chan Sung Jung. I think you have the winners of those two fights, and then Calvin Kattar's up third, in my opinion. I think that's the way it's going to shake out moving forward. Whether you get it down to those three guys and you figure out a title eliminator situation, that's not my decision to make. But I think that's how they probably settle things in this featherweight division. You take the two winners of those fights in the 2 through 5 contenders, and then throw Calvin Kattar in third behind those guys.
You couldn't have said it any better. I think, yes, like you said, they won't go to the Holloway trilogy right away because Volkanovski has won the first two. So they're not really too eager to do that. And with Zabit, I would love to see Zabit take on Volkanovski. That's one of my dream fights personally.
I
So
love Zabit, man.
he's great.
I love him.
He's great. I mean, we'll definitely talk about him. He fights in a few weeks. So, I mean, we'll definitely have to talk about him quite soon. And yeah, we could see this division stacked. I think you and I have talked about this, especially 1 through 7. I mean, Josh Emmett, it's a shame he got hurt because he really could have taken that momentum from the Shane Burgos fight and just pushed forward. I mean, this dude's tough as nails. I think he fractured his femur in that fight. He sprained a couple ligaments and tore his ACL. This dude's tough as nails. This guy's like Bisping in the featherweight division. So I think this is an exciting division to watch. I know you definitely agree with that. But
yeah.
So, do you have any final thoughts?
Just one thing I want to backtrack there. Calvin Kattar did lose to Zabit Magomedsharipov in Zabit's last fight. But something to watch out for, as Calvin Kattar has looked a little more refined in his last 2 fights. Calvin Kattar, in terms of total strikes, did outstrike Zabit in that fight. He was just, in terms of significant strikes, he was outdone by 16. Zabit was a lot more precise in that fight. So moving forward, Calvin Kattar's a guy that has proven he can stand and go with the top level fighters in this division. That was a fight that went to a decision. So I like Calvin Kattar. I like what he's going to be doing in the future.
Yep, I couldn't put it any better. So, well, guys, thank you for listening. Daniel, thanks for coming back on. We always have a good time here.
Yes, sir.
And we will see you guys for the Figueiredo versus Benavidez preview.